A reading from the Thirlwall Inquiry transcript of November 25, 2024. Alison Kelly is asked questions by Kate Blackwell KC. Ms. Blackwell, Mrs. Kelly, you have been asked some questions at the beginning of your evidence session this morning about your background in nursing, but I just want to expand upon that for a couple of moments, if I may, and talk about your full role as an executive at the time of the events with which this inquiry is concerned. You were professionally responsible for around about 1,000 nurses and midwives, is that right? Alison Kelly, that's correct. Kate Blackwell, yes, we have heard that there were 600 beds in the hospital at which you worked. And is it right that there are about 20 cots in the NNU? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, and there were about 14 nurses working on that unit, is that right? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, you have made reference to the nursing structure that lay beneath you, and is it right that as well as working lengthy office hours within the hospital, you worked in the evenings and at weekends? Alison Kelly, yes, that was quite usual. Kate Blackwell, we can see from some of the emails at which we have looked, the times at which you were corresponding with your colleagues. Would you be in back-to-back meetings for most of your working days? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, and would some of those meetings take you out of the hospital and to other places in the locality? Alison Kelly, yes. As we mentioned this morning, I had a key role in working with the local university. Kate Blackwell, yes. Alison Kelly, and also a profile across Cheshire and Merseyside as a region, in terms of leadership and nurse development, so there was a number of times where I was out of the organisation. Kate Blackwell, you have expressed already the number of emails that you would receive on a daily basis. Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, what did you wear to work? Alison Kelly, I was really keen to demonstrate to my teams, that is the 1,000 nurses and midwives, that I was a nurse and I was the nurse on the board, so I did have a uniform and I did work clinically. And that would be on a regular basis. And actually, that gave me a full appreciation of challenges on the shop floor. Be able to articulate at the board. Kate Blackwell, was wearing a uniform obligatory in your position? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, was working clinically obligatory in your position? Alison Kelly. Kate Blackwell, but you chose to do both of those things? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, thank you. You have been asked more recently about the serious incident panel meeting on July 2nd, 2015, by both Mr. Skelton and also Mr. Kennedy. Are you in any doubt as to whether or not Arian Powell was present at that meeting? Alison Kelly, no. She wasn't at that meeting. Kate Blackwell, and are you in any doubt about whether or not Lucy Letby's name was mentioned during that meeting? Alison Kelly, no, she wasn't mentioned at that meeting. Kate Blackwell, we know because I took Mr. Breary to it, Dr. Breary to it, when I asked him questions that immediately following that meeting you sent him an email. Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, do you remember? Alison Kelly, yes, I do. Kate Blackwell, I'm not going to ask that we put it up, but I will read out to you some of what you said in that email to him. It was reassuring to know that each case had been looked at in such detail, and that we recognized that some areas required further review, and that you offered to speak to Dr. Breary if he wanted to talk through anything in Ian's absence, because I think that Mr. Harvey was away from work at that time? Alison Kelly, that's correct. Kate Blackwell, yes. Did Dr. Breary ever respond to that offer to talk through with you anything that he wanted to? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, did he ever come to see you or speak to you to raise any concerns following that meeting? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, was the next that you heard from Dr. Breary his email to you in May of the following year? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, all right. Well, in between those times we know that you received several copies of the thematic review, first of all in February, and then later on in March, and you have been asked questions about a lack of urgency. Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, in your actions or reactions to being provided with those reports. Now, I would like to put up an email which we have seen before, but to take you through different aspects of it. It's at INQ0003138. And please may we look at page 2. This is the email which you received from Dr. Breary on the 4th of May. when the meeting that was originally arranged for that day had to be cancelled and you were looking for a new date. And if we look at the top, please, this email is the one that we've seen before. This is his response after the meeting had been cancelled. Thanks, Alison. There is a nurse on the unit who has been present for quite a few of the deaths and other arrests. Mr. Skelton asked you about the raising of the prospect of other arrests. It's this I want to ask you about. Arian has sensibly put her on day shifts. What did you take from Dr. Breary telling you that he thought that moving Nurse Letby to day shifts was a sensible move? Alison Kelly, yes. And the impression I got from that email was it was to provide support and welfare for Letby, as we would with any other nurse who was struggling. We would sensibly move them from nights to days. Kate Blackwell, did he, around about this time, ever suggest that she should be either supervised or taken off the ward? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, but can't do this indefinitely. He goes on to say, it would be very helpful to meet before she's due to go back onto night shifts. So did that suggest to you that he was contemplating that a time would come when she would go back onto night shifts? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, yes. There is some pressure regarding staffing numbers with this at the moment. What did you take him to mean by that? Alison Kelly, I think it felt to me that there was some staffing challenges and that they were lacking on the night shifts. So therefore, we needed to have a conversation to make sure that the unit was sensibly staffed. Kate Blackwell, he gave evidence to this inquiry that several weeks before this, in fact, once the thematic review was in the process of being completed back in February of 2016, he had requested an urgent meeting with Ian Harvey. Did you know anything about that? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, did he ever seek an urgent meeting with you to discuss these matters? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, did he ever email you in those terms? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, I would like now to go to INQ 0003089, please, and to look at the manner in which you were being addressed by Arian Powell about these matters at around this time. Now, if we can go to page 2, please. We have looked at the email at the bottom of this page on several occasions today, and you have given evidence that you took some comfort. That's my word, not yours. From the way in which Arian Powell signed off this email when she said, despite reviewing these cases, there was nothing obvious that we were able to identify. Therefore, your input would be valued. Did you see any sense of urgency? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, in what Arian Powell was suggesting to you there? Alison Kelly, no. Not at that time. Kate Blackwell, thank you. We see your response above on 21 March, and please could we go back to page 1 now to see the terms in which Arian Powell was addressing you the following month on 14th of April. Hi, Alison. I was wondering what your thoughts were after going through the thematic review. I noticed that the thematic review did not include the medical team that were involved. I have therefore attached the document that includes this. Did you take anything in that email as a note of urgency or warning that this matter had to be addressed and soon? Alison Kelly, no. It just felt like we need a general catch-up just to talk some things through. There was no sense of urgency from my respect. Kate Blackwell, thank you. Moving now to the 11th. That can come down. Thank you very much. The 11 May meeting. You have not really been asked very much about what went on at that meeting. The inquiry already knows that it was at that meeting that Dr. Breary went through the results of the thematic review, which, by that time, had been completed. And the inquiry has also heard that Arian Powell and Anne Murphy went through the document that Arian Powell had prepared in preparation for that meeting? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, Dr. Breary has told this inquiry that in doing so, Arian Powell was acting in an emotional state. Do you agree with that evidence? Alison Kelly, that is not my recollection of the meeting, no. Kate Blackwell, how would you describe the way in which Arian Powell and Anne Murphy conducted themselves? Alison Kelly, they were very professional, but they were very assertive, and they were very passionate about articulating the assurance provided for their member of staff. But in addition to that, they were also equally as assertive about some of the clinical challenges that they were having on the unit at that time. For instance, transport issues. Kate Blackwell, what was Dr. Breary's reaction to their assertiveness and the issues that they were bringing up during the course of the meeting? Alison Kelly, he didn't really react to what was being said. He was very focused on going through the thematic review in terms of the clinical care and the clinical cases. Kate Blackwell, can I ask you this, please? Did he ever mention deliberate harm? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, did he challenge Arian Powell and Anne Murphy about what they were saying? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, and when you received his follow-up email, which I took him to, I am not going to ask that we look at it now, which he said that he was, and I'm paraphrasing again, content with the outcome of the meeting. What did you take that as being? Alison Kelly, that we all left that meeting on 11 May agreeing with the actions to be taken, and that he was happy that we were taking the appropriate action, and then he cascaded that to his colleagues. Kate Blackwell, did he, like you, express that he thought it was a helpful meeting? Alison Kelly, it was a helpful meeting, yes. Kate Blackwell, yes. And did he at any stage, following the meeting concluding on 11 May and between 23 June, ever approach you, or as far as you know any of the other executives to bring any further concerns to your attention? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, now, it was put to you this morning that by this time doctors believed that Lucy Letby was murdering babies. Had that ever been suggested to you in those terms? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, the inquiry has heard that on 24th June, following the death of child O the previous day, Dr. Jairam met Karen Townsend in the cafe at the hospital and raised as the third item on an agenda with her the concerns that the consultants had, and in particular in relation to child K, I think, which was mentioned, or rather, sorry, not in relation to child K, but in relation to the consultants' concerns? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, how did that come to your attention? Alison Kelly, that was raised up through Karen Rees because Karen Townsend had asked her earlier in the day following that meeting to go and find out what was going on, and then that sort of escalated as time went on to the actions that we then took following the deaths of baby O and baby P. Kate Blackwell, all right. Now, I have mentioned child K there. Of course, by 24 June, child K had collapsed and died, and that had happened back in February of 2016. The day before the CQC meeting, when was that brought to your attention? Alison Kelly, not until the following year when Dr. Jairam had that conversation with Sue Hodkinson. Kate Blackwell, well, Alison Kelly, so there was nothing raised at that time of the incident with us. Kate Blackwell, do you know whether or not the consultants were being pressed for evidence of the association with Letby and how that was connected to the deaths or collapses? Alison Kelly, we were constantly asking questions of the clinicians of evidence and more information, and it's only further down the line in 2017 that we were told about baby K, which was extraordinary because that could have been raised the year before. Kate Blackwell, all right. We know that on July 6, 2016, you contacted the NMC. Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, and you had a conversation with Tony Newman, after which he sent the email which we have looked at this afternoon, setting out the 7 points which you then corrected in part. And do you agree that that accurately reflects the conversation that you had had with him on that day? Alison Kelly, on that day, yes, I do. Kate Blackwell, all right. It's been suggested to you that had you activated the safeguarding policy at this time, that Lucy Letby would have undoubtedly been suspended and that the police would have been informed and that matters would have taken their natural course. We know that the police were told about the concerns in April of 2017 and that Lucy Letby wasn't arrested until July of 2018. Do you know whether the police took any action to ensure that she was suspended or somehow supervised in whatever role she had at the hospital between those dates and during the course of their investigation? Alison Kelly, there are some email evidence from the police asking whether she was part of a nurse bank, which means you can work anywhere, not just in the hospital, but elsewhere, and that was a follow-up action that D. Appleton Cairns took. Kate Blackwell, yes. Alison Kelly, however, other than that, nothing as far as I'm aware was undertaken, and indeed in further conversations with the NMC, it became apparent that there was little concern about putting restrictions on her practice, until significant time down the investigation, which I thought was quite inappropriate, because it was almost at the end of the investigation that action was going to be taken about restricting her practice. Kate Blackwell, thank you. Moving on to the RCPTH report and the questions that you have answered today, about the fact that one of the considerations and recommendations was that action was required in terms of an HR investigation, which I think has been described as a disciplinary investigation. Did you consider any difficulties in carrying out that recommendation? And if you did, what advice did you take about that? Alison Kelly, so I think, as I mentioned earlier, we were struggling at the time looking at our HR policies internally to actually truly understand what policy we would be using to discipline Letby on, and that's when myself and Sue Hodkinson in particular sought external HR legal advice, which was really supportive at the time. So it wasn't that we ignored that recommendation. It's just that we took a different tact based on external advice. Kate Blackwell. All right. Next topic, Dr. Horden's report, please. You have given evidence today that your understanding of that report was that there were a number of examples of suboptimal care raised, and you have explained your understanding about the extent of the effect of such suboptimal care. Now, I would like, just very briefly please, to look at INQ 0003172. Please could we go to page 44? Thank you. This is the page that deals with the summary of cases, where we can see they are divided into two groups. The first group is where the death or collapse is explained, but may have been prevented with different care, and learning may improve the outcome for other babies. So what did you understand that to mean? Alison Kelly. To me, that demonstrated that care wasn't being delivered in the standards that we would expect for neonatal care, and there was obviously some areas of improvement required. Kate Blackwell. And that the deaths or collapses may have been prevented with different care. Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell. And we can see that within Group 1 are Child H, Child Q, Child E, Child C, and a series of other children. And then we can see in the second group, the death or collapse is unexplained, and it's the investigation of these cases which would potentially benefit from, we know, the local forensic review as to the circumstances, and we know that that took place. Alison Kelly. Yes. Kate Blackwell, yes. Thank you. We can take that down, please. Two further matters, if I may. The first is in relation to the meeting with Mother C. It's been put to you that Mother C's recollection is that you were present. You were one of two female clinicians present at that meeting, and it's already been remarked upon by counsel to the inquiry this morning that you are a person who almost religiously takes a note. Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell. In the meetings that you are present in, and a good note. Have you looked in the notebooks which have been provided to you, copies of the notebooks by the inquiry, as to whether or not you have any note at any time of meeting any of the mothers of any of the indictment children? Alison Kelly. There was no record in my meeting notes, in my notebook I should say. As part of my role, I would very often meet with families on the back of complaints, or if they had any concerns, I would religiously take notes of those meetings, and if there was anything that was of concern that needed follow-up, I would usually reflect that back in a letter. I have no evidence of any of those notes that may have been taken at that meeting with Mother C, so I can only assume, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I can assume that I wasn't there. Kate Blackwell, right. And is there any record at all that you can find of a follow-up letter? Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, thank you. Finally, this, I said I would come back to it. It's the meeting on March 16th, 2017, when you say it was first brought to your attention that Dr. Jairam had witnessed an incident at the cot of Child K that he concluded was her inflicting deliberate harm. Now, during the course of that meeting, we have looked at a note already. You are recorded as having said, why not before? Alison Kelly, yes. Kate Blackwell, and that was you have told the inquiry your reaction to, well, to what? Alison Kelly, shock that we had not been told about that before. Kate Blackwell, and by way of an example of an explanation as to why that hadn't come out before, counsel to the inquiry took you to the note that records it being reported during the course of that meeting that the consultants felt like battered wives, and that the executives were the abusers. As an executive, how did you feel about the fact that the sensitivity of the two consultant leads on the neonatal unit and of children's services felt so bruised that they compared themselves to battered wives? Alison Kelly, yes, shocked, and an inappropriate comment to make. Kate Blackwell, and did you find this excuse for Dr. Jairam keeping the eyewitness evidence about Child K to himself for a full 13 months, during the continuing collapses and deaths of the neonates, and you, as you have told the inquiry, repeatedly asking for evidence of Letby's involvement. Alison Kelly, no. Kate Blackwell, ample justification for his silence? Alison Kelly, no. Ms. Blackwell, thank you. My lady, that concludes my questions. Lady Justice Thirlwall, thank you very much. Miss Blackwell. Questions by Lady Justice Thirlwall. Lady Justice Thirlwall, one of the things you said a bit earlier. We are nearly finished. Alison Kelly, that's okay. Lady Justice Thirlwall, a little bit earlier was that you think that you should have been more supportive of the consultants. Alison Kelly, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall, you said that earlier in your evidence. This is really just for my understanding. In what way were you at all supportive of the consultants? Alison Kelly, I think what I was meaning by that was more on a pastoral perspective. Lady Justice Thirlwall, yes. Alison Kelly. So I know that my colleague Sue Hodkinson was conscious that there was a lot of stress in the team with everything that was going on at the time, and she may refer to some of that in her evidence. But I think what we could have done better on reflection is provide more formal support for that team. I made sure. Lady Justice Thirlwall, when you say that team, you mean the consultants team. Alison Kelly, the consultant team, sorry, yes. From a nursing perspective, there were quite good structures in place to get that organised. Probably not so much with the consultant body. But I do, on reflection, I think we could have put more support in to get them through the very tricky time that we had. Lady Justice Thirlwall, yes. In fact, was there any support put in? Alison Kelly, I think occupational health support was offered to a couple of people, but more of as a collective, really. And I don't think we asked the question at that time, what extra support do you need? Particularly at the time of the grievance, which was quite tricky in terms of relationships, and I think they were feeling quite upset by the whole process. So I think, on reflection, we could have put some formal mechanisms in place to support them at that time. Lady Justice Thirlwall, thank you. Then just one last matter, if I may. You have been asked repeatedly by different people whether you took the consultants' concerns seriously, and what I would just like to ask you about a little bit is what were you being told were the views of the senior nurses about what the consultants were telling you? We have seen what's said in the meetings. Alison Kelly, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall, but presumably there would have been conversations between you and Karen Rees, for example. What was her view of it? Alison Kelly? Yes, and Karen Rees in particular was very passionate about her profession, and she was very upset by what she was hearing from the consultant body. But we all recognised at the time that we needed to get lots of information together to get a true picture of what at the time was a very complicated story. So I think some of the comments that were being made by the consultants did affect some of my team to the point where I needed also to provide additional support for my team, and that included the risk management team as well. Not just the nursing component. Lady Justice Thirlwall, yes. Miss Rees gave some evidence about being asked to take Lucy Letby off the ward, and you will be aware of that exchange. Alison Kelly, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall, with Dr. Breary. Alison Kelly, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall, I don't need to take you back over that. But she told us that she had had experience in an earlier job of some cardiologists wanting a nurse removed from their unit or something like that. Alison Kelly, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall, I haven't got the precise wording, and she was incensed by that, and having dug into it, discussed there was an ulterior motive for that. And in this case, she told us, and I am sure you're aware of this, that she wondered whether there was some sort of relationship between Lucy Letby and Dr. Breary. Did she talk to you about that? Alison Kelly, she mentioned that not in those detailed terms. Lady Justice Thirlwall, no. Alison Kelly, but felt there was a personal issue, was how she phrased it when she spoke to me on that Friday evening around the death of baby P. So when she came to see me, she was very, very upset, and she got the impression there was something personal. She said, something personal. We didn't go into any detail of what she thought that was. Lady Justice Thirlwall, no, and we know because she told us. Alison Kelly, and Lady Justice Thirlwall, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut across you. Alison Kelly, potentially but she was quite exercised by that. Lady Justice Thirlwall, yes, she was quite angry about it, wasn't she? Alison Kelly, yes. Yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall. And she told us that she went and asked Lucy Letby about it. And she said there was nothing to it. Alison Kelly. I believe she did, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall. But we know, don't we, that information became sort of currency within the hospital, don't we? So does that give us any clue, or did it give you any clue about whether or not the nurses perhaps thought that doctors were just making this up? Alison Kelly, they may have done. I think you're absolutely right. I think one comment was made, and before you knew it, there were lots of rumours going round. Lady Justice Thirlwall, yes. Alison Kelly, and some inappropriate comments made corridor conversations. Lady Justice Thirlwall, don't worry. I mean, I know there's been a lot of that, and we've heard evidence about it. Alison Kelly, corridor conversations, etc. Lady Justice Thirlwall, yes. Alison Kelly. So it became very insensitive to everybody involved. And what was fact and what wasn't fact was not clear. Lady Justice Thirlwall, no. All right. Alison Kelly, yes. Lady Justice Thirlwall, thank you very much indeed. Does anybody want to ask anything arising out of what I have just asked? No. In that case, Mrs. Kelly, thank you for coming. You are free to go. Alison Kelly, thank you.